little something that Kinsey, who's our presenter, Kinsey is the program director of the Arizona chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. So she's driven all the way up from Phoenix this morning to be with us.
Thank you for being here.
And I will give her the microphone in a minute. I promise I won't hog it. She will be the presenter this morning. But let me read you a little something that she wrote in response to what this particular workshop or presentation is about. Family caregiving is an act of love, but it often comes with overwhelming physical, emotional, and mental demands. This supportive and practical presentation is designed specifically for family caregivers who juggle multiple responsibilities while caring for someone that they cherish. I think we've probably all been in the position of being a caregiver, whether it's short-term, long-term, so we all kind of can probably identify with that. Together, we'll explore why self-care isn't selfish, it's essential, and how small, realistic changes can make a meaningful difference in your daily well-being. So, you know, as a caregiver, it's kind of that old statement where you can't pour from an empty cup. As a caregiver, you need to take care of yourself. So that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today, correct?
Correct.
So, I'm going to introduce, this is Kinsey McManus, and she has a volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association with her, Alan, that's the second name he's got there, Richstein, and he's also going to be speaking at some point during the program. So again, Kelly is the program director of the Arizona chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. So welcome to Kinsey.
That's all right. Thank you. When you have a name like Kinsey, you answered all kinds of things. So part of the reason that I ended up developing this presentation is that my whole career has been working with family caregivers. I worked with families who are caring for loved ones who have serious mental illness, and now I've transitioned over to the Alzheimer's Association, where I get to support and work with families who are caring for loved ones with all different kinds of dementia. I'm not going to spend a lot of time today talking about Alzheimer's and dementia, but some of the materials are in the context and from the Alzheimer's Association. Couple of housekeeping. One, if you need a pen, the pens are up in the back, and then we also have special materials from the Alzheimer's Association if that is relevant to your experience. I just want to say thank you so much for coming today. I know it's not easy to get time, especially if you're in the throes of major caregiving responsibilities. Part of taking care of yourself is coming today. So I'm going to share my objectives. So today we're going to do a couple of things. One of which is we're going to talk about what does caregiver stress look like, how does it play out, where are you at right now in your stress level when it comes to caregiving. We're going to cover short-term things you can do to help lower your kind of stress level in the moment, but we're also going to talk about what you can be doing long-term to reduce the stress that comes with caregiving overall. And while today I'm going to talk a lot about kind of the negative side of caregiving, we also gain so much as family caregivers. We get a new way to show our love to people that we care about genuinely. It gives us an opportunity to give back, especially if it's someone who's been a giver to us in our relationships. And generally, it can just feel really good to care for another person. So I don't want to just dive into the negatives and then not mention all of the wonderful things that we do benefit when we're giving care to those we love. We are going to do some relaxation exercises today as well, just to test some things out. So the first thing that I'm going to invite you to do is there is on the first page and a page on your handout is a caregiver stress checklist. So this was put together by the American Medical Association, and it's really for anyone who's any type of caregiver to really do a quick assessment of kind of where you are at in your journey right now and how you're feeling. You can fill it out now, or what you can do is just kind of look at it to get a general gauge. There is scoring on the back to really see what your numbers look like. And I know right now we've got laps, so it might not be as easy to do the scoring today. The other thing is that this is something for you to use and check in on. So every month, every 3 months, just when you're starting to think, how am I doing? It's a good temperature check. So I'm going to give everyone a minute to just kind of look through the questions, see what might resonate, see what might be surprising to you that maybe you didn't think of as a sign of caregiver stress. Okay, so I'm going to give you the quick cheat, which is other than 5 and 15, if you put a yes, that's a point, and if you put no for 5 and 15, that's the point. And then when we're looking at where you score and what your score means, if your score is higher than a 10, chances are you're experiencing a high degree of stress or distress. I'm not going to ask anyone to raise their hands and where their scores are at. This is just for you to know where you're at in the moment. If you answered yes to questions 4 and 11, those are big indicators. So 4 being feeling completely overwhelmed, and 11 is around having crying spells. Then on 17 and 18, if you scored a 6 or higher, that really indicates a high degree of stress. So some next steps, although we're going to talk a lot about next steps in the coming part of the presentation, but the next steps are making sure that you're touching base with your doctor. This is one of those things that are really easy to put aside, is taking care of our own physical health and going in to see our physicians. Typically, when it comes to making appointments, we're making appointments for our loved ones and not for ourselves. Consider trying to find some respite relief from caregiving. We'll talk about how to get some respite and some relief around that. And then joining a support group, which you're going to hear quite a bit more from Alan about. So since I made you touch in to how stressed out you are, right? I'm going to help bring us down a notch, because that would be unfair of me to just leave you in a stressful state if you scored high. So one of the things that's really helpful are breathing exercises. How many of you have heard of box breathing? So we've got a few people. It was actually initially designed by the military to help active service members reduce their stress in active combat. But certainly as caregivers, we are also warriors. So I think this is a fitting exercise for us. Now here's the thing. It's all about counting to 4. So 4 for breathing in, 4 for holding, 4 for breathing out. Every person's pace of counting to 4 is going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. We just do it to feel comfortable. So if you feel like the intake is just too long in your 4 count, you can speed it up. If holding your breath feels really uncomfortable, it's all right. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just about doing the act of counting and breathing and keeping it even. So we are going to practice this all together. And if I'm going too slow for you, feel free to speed up. So we're going to breathe in, counting to 4 slowly. You're going to feel how the air feels when it's entering your lungs. You're going to hold your breath for a count of 4. Try to avoid inhaling or exhaling during that count of 4. And then we slowly exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds. So typically in through the nose, hold out through the mouth. And some people like to make a sound when they breathe out through the mouth. They might go, ah. That is good too, okay? Maybe in a group setting that doesn't feel as comfortable, but when you're home alone or you're around loved ones, it's a nice way to also just vocalize to let some of the stress go. And then you repeat it 1 to 3 times until you feel really centered. So my first recommendation is if you're sitting, first thing is to put both your feet flat on the floor. Let the chair support you. So it's okay to sit back. If you have short legs like me, sometimes that means I'm dangling. So, wherever it gets your feet flat on the floor and you have as much support on your back and on your underside, that's really where you want to feel very supported. And what we call that is grounding. So really feeling the support of the earth beneath you is grounding. So we're gonna kind of shake it out a little bit. I always like to do a little shake. Might want to roll your head. Just kind of let some of the body tension loose. You can put your hands loosely in your lap, whatever feels the most comfortable. This is about comfort. Okay, and so now we're going to start to do the breath work. So we're going to breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out through your mouth, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in through your nose, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more time. Breathe in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel a little bit better? Feel a little more relaxed? So you can do that as many times as you want. You don't even have to do it just 3 times. It's until you really start to feel centered. So what does this do? 1, it gives your mind something that's simple to focus on. It helps lower your heart rate, so it brings the heart rate down a little bit. Deep breaths really help just kind of slow everything down. So you do it to the speed that's most comfortable. It's comfort, comfort, comfort. So great job. Thank you for going along with that with me. So what are some of the symptoms that we look at when we're thinking about caregiver stress? I put the first one in why am I blanking on what we call that? Apostrophes. So here's why I put denial that way. So I'm a social worker by training. I don't like the word denial. I think it's unfair. I think it's a natural response to stressful situations. Who wants to think about how hard things are? Your brain is going to protect you and make sure that you don't feel the overwhelmingness as much as possible. So a little bit of denial is normal. It's a normal reaction to high stress situations. So we don't beat ourselves up. All of these are normal reactions. The concern is when it hangs in for a long period of time. It can be damaging to us. Anger is your light on your dashboard to say something's not going right. It is a motivator emotion, and so it's something you can use to help make change, but anger unchecked can be very damaging to us. It puts us in that fight or flight state. How many of you have heard of fight or flight? So a good number of you. So that's your body is getting ready to act. You're either going to fight or flee. And so it was very, very protective for us when we lived back in the days in the wild where there were predators. We don't really have a lot of circumstances these days in the modern world where we need to fight or run away. So what happens is we don't have movement that's needed to happen, and the energy gets trapped. So your heart rate goes up, everything starts to pump, you get lots of stress hormones that kick through. So anger can be, over time, really damaging to our body and our mental health. Social withdrawal. Now, some of this has to do with the more responsibilities we're taking on, and we're going to go through a caregiver checklist in a little bit. When we take on more responsibilities, we just don't have as much time. That's normal. But when we find that we're avoiding connection with others, that's kind of our warning sign. And if you're recognizing, hey, I'm not spending time with the people that make me feel good, also time to think, how do I build in some kind of social option and opportunity? Anxiety and depression are my least favorite, but they're friends that like to come hand in hand. So anxiety is feeling really stressed and overwhelmed. That was a couple of the different things when you were looking through your checklist of feelings. Anxiety is kind of also like anger. It's a motivating emotion. It just kind of hangs around inside. And then depression, it can be sadness, but depression is actually more like the emotional equivalent of watching paint dry on the wall. You just don't have joy. It's hard to feel joy. Everything feels less than. The world is not as bright and colorful when we're feeling depressed. Exhaustion, which can come with sleeplessness, and they're just kind of a vicious cycle. Sleeplessness because we're just thinking about all the things we need to do, things that we didn't do. If there's one thing that you take away from today, it is that you are doing your absolute best. I know you are. And so reminding yourself, hey, I'm just doing my best here. And my best is gosh darn good enough. So exhaustion and sleeplessness, when we're tired, when we're not sleeping well, surprise, surprise, we're more irritable. It makes it easier to get frustrated more quickly. We may have trouble with concentration, and then because all of these things are affecting your physical health, and maybe we're also not taking care of going to see the doctor, getting things checked, especially if there's some things we're concerned about, we can have health problems. One of the things that we really watch out for when it comes to caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and dementia is that they also tend to have their own health conditions, which compounds everything. The other piece of it is that people who care for a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia have higher rates of depression compared to those caring for any other condition. So we keep a real close eye. The reason that is kind of twofold. One of which is that Alzheimer's disease, on average, past diagnosis, people live about 8 years, but they can live up to 20. So it is a long caregiving road, and it just gets harder and harder and harder as the disease gets worse and worse. And the other trick that happens is because it moves slowly, typically, the caregiver is just slowly assuming more responsibility so that one extra doesn't feel like it. But it's like rocks coming down the mountain, right? They start to pick up more rocks. And so then you're at boulder-shaped level of caregiving without realizing it got there, because it starts with tiny little rocks and then they just kind of tumble all together and grow and grow. I got 2 slides on this, and this is where I'm a little bit preachy, but I hope that you'll pick one of these things to think about. So one of which is, if you have waited, you're like, how many times are you going to talk about seeing your doctor? I promise this might be the last time, close to it. If you have not had an annual physical in a year, today is your day to call your doctor after you leave here and set up an appointment. Getting moving. So one of the things that's really helpful, and I don't mean like going to the gym 5 days a week, I mean like going for a walk. Walk does a few things, one of which is it burns off the anxiety and anger energy. It also, you do deeper breathing. This could not be a more beautiful place to go for a walk, right? I mean, what a blessing. So really taking that time to mentally clear. For me when I'm walking, my brain is like processing the day and putting things down. Like, okay, all of these things happened today, and it gives me a chance to just kind of process through them and reset. I usually do my walk after work so that I can let work go and do home afterwards. So I leave my baggage of work at the door of work or after my walk, and then I pick up my baggage of home on my way in the door. And that's how I kind of compartmentalize. Eating well is also really helpful. Also, getting moving, eating well, seeing a physician, these are all things that also help protect your brain health. So there is a mind diet that they recommend specifically for your brain health, but Mediterranean diet, DASH diet, at the end of the day, what's good for your heart is good for your head. So if that's one thing you remember about brain health, that's one way we contribute, is really taking good care of our hearts. Knowing what community resources are available, getting help and finding support. So these things, now we start to talk about outsourcing. We're kind of responsible for, getting moving, although we can have friends get us help to stay committed, friends and family. If someone can help you with grocery shopping and things like that, eating well might be a little bit easier. I am the youngest of 4 daughters, and I am the only millennial in the family. And whenever tech issues happen or research needs to occur, I get called, right? And that's okay, because nothing to my sisters, but I am the best internet researcher. They're like, I want on WebMD, and mom's dying, and I was like, that's not where we go for healthcare information. Like, did you look on the Mayo Clinic? Like, let's do Cleveland Clinic. What are these really reputable nonprofit that has to do with this type of illness? So mom is always dying as far as my sisters are concerned. Not the fact. She's living a very healthy life. In fact, might be healthier than me. So I do the research for that. So knowing who can help you with these things is really important. Relaxation techniques, we're going to dive into a couple of other ones that you can use. You know what relaxes you the best. We're just going to test out some things that maybe you haven't tried before, give you a little more structure to just remind you. This is your mental space. So part of it is, how do we help manage our stress? And some of the things over here help contribute to that. Being realistic about what you're actually able to do and not. We only have so much capacity, right? The cup only fills so much. So are we really being realistic about what's possible and you're capable of doing? Knowing that you're doing your best always. This should be a mantra for all family caregivers. You are doing your absolute best. Taking breaks when possible, and then this one, especially when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia, but is relevant in a lot of spaces, is accepting changes as they occur, knowing that changes will happen.
Could you go back to that one screen for me, please? I want to take a picture of it. Thank you. I can't write fast enough.
Well, in your handouts,
I know there's some. Okay, thank you.
There's the tips, and in the handout it also includes some information about different types of resources that you might want to access, some recommendations on how to get moving, finding time for yourself. The other piece I didn't talk about, and part of that has to tie in with accepting changes as they occur, is getting as educated as you can so that you can prepare. So you have some idea of what potential changes could come. And I will tell you right now, if you're relying on a physician to give you that information, it's not happening. They're not the ones, they give you 5 minutes, they're just pretty much dropping a diagnosis on you, talking at you very quickly in language we don't speak, and then moving on to their next patient, right? So if there's a social worker or a nurse that's there to help give more information and resources, usually there's someone that's connected to a physician who's actually got more relevant information, and then doing some more research about knowing what might be in your community or might be able to access online. So then I'll say it again, see the doctor, that's on the next page. And then there's some tips, more deep dive tips on helping to cope and doing some different relaxation activities. So I am not gonna have us do this one. There are, in your handout, there are 8 different visualization techniques for stress. And this one is in there. So here's the thing. Not everyone likes visualization. Some people have a hard time visualizing. And so it makes it more uncomfortable to do than doing something like a breathing exercise. Lots of breathing exercises that you can choose from. YouTube is your friend. I find so much information on YouTube on different relaxation techniques. So there are 8 to choose from because one of them might connect with you. I usually recommend, if you are someone who likes visualizing, thinking of a place that's very positive and brings joy. Sometimes it's a memory of a place or a moment in time. Sometimes it's a physical place. So I will tell you mine, just to give you an idea, because it ties into memory and it ties into a physical place. So I grew up in Philly. My dad and my stepmom lived in Phoenix my whole life. So I spent half my life in Phoenix and half my life in Philly. Most of my adulthood, I lived on the East Coast. I lived in New York City for many years. So I would come out to Phoenix, and I know this is going to sound weird, but Phoenix was quiet for me. New York City, first time I lived in a 200 square foot apartment on the 4th floor with no elevator. And laundry down the street. So my walls were paper thin. I had, 4 neighbors around me, a neighbor above me, a neighbor below me. You could hear everything. I could hear my neighbor coughing in their apartment, kind of thing. You just have no privacy, and you're just crammed in. You see hundreds of people on your way to work just commuting in. I dressed very differently then, and I wore a lot of makeup because I was out about town. And it's a really different lifestyle. So I would come to Phoenix to unwind. And my family lived right on the edge of a preservation. So I could walk not far to get onto a trail. And there was a point when I would hike that I would just step past where I could see the house. And that would be where I stopped. And it was quiet, and I would just do a deep breath, and the smell of the dirt, I just love the smell of the red dirt. You know what I'm talking about, and just the quiet. And that is my moment, feeling the sun on my face, feeling a little bit overheated, right, because it's still in the desert, even in the springtime. Having that quiet, because I hadn't had quiet. You hear it, and it's a 24/7 city. You're just constantly hearing sound. That's my moment. That's where I bring myself when I do visualizations. Now, eventually I got smart enough to move where I do my visualizations. Imagine that. One day, finally I put it together. So is there a moment in time that really brings you peace or joy? And it can be getting together with family. And then you want to include all of the senses. What am I seeing? What do I hear? What am I feeling inside? Do I smell things? Am I tasting something? Get all the senses involved so you really feel like you're there, and then just sit in it for a little while. And then you're using your deep breathing to help relax while you're doing that. Box breathing's a little bit trickier because you're counting, so we don't want to count, but just kind of slow in. Maybe you hold slow out, and just really sense and feel into that experience. And that is something you can do anywhere. So this was a visualization technique that we used to teach other people, and it included things like surgeons and physicians. So especially surgeons, if they were about to go out and give family bad news, you can literally just stand with your hand on the door so you feel supported, have that visualization, to shake off and get ready to give really bad news. So we did it with people who worked in prisons, you name it, other healthcare, mental health care providers. It's just a great way to help recenter and bring people back so that they can kind of put whatever internally is going on aside so that they can be fully present. So this is probably my favorite part of this, second favorite. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list of as many caregiving responsibilities as I could think of off of the top of my head, and I also put other because I know you'll have many more that you think of that will be included. So I want you to just take a minute to look through this list and think about what are all the things that I do that count in this. Sorry, I did the eco staple and now I know things are falling apart. I try to avoid using real staples. But some of the things I bet when you're looking through this list, you thought, that's not caregiving, I just do that. It's caregiving. So I suspect some of you are check. So now that you've looked at all the things you do, I want you to find 3 things that you would be willing to accept help with. It makes me a little nervous how hard you're all thinking about this. So, one of the important things about caregiving is learning that we need to let go a little bit. Not everything is going to get done perfectly, and not everything is going to get done by us. And that's okay, because if you're checking a lot of those boxes, that means that you're not checking boxes that have to do with how you're taking care of you. And it's also saying you're living like a 36-hour day in 24 hours. Which is a fantastic book, by the way, 36-Hour Day for Caregivers. I highly recommend it. Because we feel like we're responsible for doing all of these things. Like it's our duty to do all of these things on this list. But the reality is that you can't possibly do all of them. You cannot do all of them. So this is the piece of thinking about the next one, which is your sphere of influence, but I'm going to give you some examples before we get there. Because you've already heard one outsourcing from me. Research on community resources. Guess who does that for the whole family? That is part of my caregiving role. I do a lot of research. I'm the one that does, I go on ZocDoc and different things to find who are high-rated physicians in this area. I look information up. I don't love making phone calls, but my sisters will do that for me. But really, I'm our researcher for the family. So if we're looking for resources in the community and information, the family comes to me. That takes one thing off of everyone's list, and I'm very happy to do it. Then there's knowing who to ask and who not. So if we were in a really tough situation of caregiving, and having someone bring meals would be helpful to just take the load off of having to plan and think through all the things that go with making one single meal. I would not pick my mom. She's not a good cook. She knows like 4 things, and they're not that great. She just doesn't have a passion for it. She doesn't really have an interest. She just eats to make sure that she eats her nutrients and like flavor and like things she puts together. I just think, oh, where did you even come up with that? There's just the things she sent me pictures that she's made. I'm just like, oh, that doesn't look remotely appetizing. But if it makes you happy, good for you. My sister, 2 of my sisters are great cooks. One of them is also not inherited that gene. We're Irish. All we came from is like you just cook things and then you cook them another hour longer. Growing up, steak was black on the outside and brown on the inside, and we ate it with ketchup, right? That was the only way you were getting it down. That is one of my mom's 4 meals, okay? It's one of the 4. So I didn't know until I became an adult what steak was supposed to be like. And man, is it a much better option. So she's not the person I'm going to pick to help cook meals for me. I love to cook. I hate grocery shopping. Many of us learned during the pandemic that you can let other people shop for you, and then everyone stopped doing it. Fortunately, I have been letting people grocery shop for me. So living in New York City in a 4th floor walk-up, you let other people grocery shop for you. And you let them carry your groceries up to your 4th floor for you, right? The laundry I had to do myself, but letting someone do grocery shopping. So I don't even want to say how many years now I've been letting other people shop for me, but it's probably closer to 15 years. So supported grocery shopping has been around a long time. And you can still like go pick up your groceries, but especially when we're thinking about families where a loved one might have dementia, the task of going to the grocery store with your loved one, especially when they're more advanced, is kind of, you have to keep an eye on them the way you would have to keep an eye on small children. Because it's very overwhelming, it's really busy, it's noisy, it's disorienting. There's a lot of things to look at, so our person may wander away from us. That's a very scary thing in a grocery store. And so you end up spending more time just trying to keep your partner with you instead of doing the things that need to get done. And suddenly what could have been a very quick shop was actually very long. And instead what you can do is say, hey, grocery store, can you do the shopping for me? Many of them don't charge you if you go and pick it up. And then it's an activity and an outing for you and your loved one to go do something, but also not have to go through the stress of doing the actual shopping. So this is where we start to look at, what things, and then even things like medication management can be really difficult, making sure someone is taking their medications, not taking them twice, or forgetting to take them. There are all kinds of assistive tools and technology that helps with things like someone being able to eat independently, someone being able to take their medications more independently. There's just so much out there that has evolved in the healthcare field to help people be more independent for longer, that these can be really helpful for us. So this we used to use, it's called your sphere of influence. We used to use that, that's what we used to call it. Well, that's what we do call it. I call it the sphere of support. Because when I think about caregivers, these are all the different people that you have touches with, potential touches with, that might be able to take something off of your list or make it easier. So maybe it's doing laundry. That seems to be the challenge. There are places that you can drop off and they'll just do all your laundry. It doesn't need to just be dry cleaning. Maybe it's ordering from a restaurant regularly. Some of this does cost more money. Family and friends, if they live close, helps a lot, but if they live far away, they can help with things like money management, legal services. When it comes to our family, my sister is a civil engineer and I'm a social worker. So my sister is my mom's power of attorney. I am her medical power of attorney. My whole career has been in healthcare. My sister needed to conference call me to talk to her vet when she had her cat at the vet because she was so anxious because she wasn't getting good news. And she said, is there a way to three-way call my sister in? She lives in Boston. Is there a way to three-way call my sister in so that, because she would talk to the doctor or the vet, and then she would call me, and she would kind of remember what the vet said, so then I would give her a list of questions, and then she would talk to the vet again, and then she would come back and she got none of the answers to the questions I wrote for her. And so finally that's when she said, can you just talk to my vet, please? Like, I can't figure it out. And granted, her cat was very sick, and in our family, our pets are our family, right? But I thought, there's no way you are our mother's medical power of attorney. Absolutely not. No way. I had an early conversation with my mom and I said, executive of the will, absolutely. She can be your power of attorney in all of the other financial things. She knows numbers, that's her safe space. The minute it's emotional, everything goes out the window, right? So, again, knowing the right people to call in, but we are both long distance from our mother. So my stepmom lives in Phoenix, my biological mom still lives in Philly. So we are still able to manage all of those things, and should we need to take over her finances or take over decisions of her medical care, most of that we can still do remotely. So even if you have loved ones who don't live nearby, or you're some of our residents who live here half of the year, so sometimes you have family with you and sometimes you don't have family and friends. Hopefully neighbors are another great option. If you're working, the other thing is that there's a lot of employee assistance programs that can be helpful. We, the Alzheimer's Association, have really been trying to talk to HRs across the board to say, you do a lot for raising kids. Are you doing enough support for those who are caring for aging parents? Because they've got the kids kind of down in what employers will offer, but they don't often have as many resources when we're talking about caring for aging parents. Healthcare and nonprofits. So if you can think of any area where you might be providing care for someone of any level, there's a nonprofit for it. There's probably 20 nonprofits for it. There's probably one locally that's just in your area, and then one that's statewide, one that's national. The Alzheimer's Association is national and local. We have locations throughout all 50 states. We're not local in every single community, but certainly we're a national nonprofit that has a high presence in a lot of places. And so there are other nonprofits that are just here locally that do the same kind of work. So many hands make light work. We like to know our other fellow nonprofits, but they're great resources for information because we're not trying to make anyone afraid of things or force people into taking a certain kind of medication, or it's just we're there to give you as much information as we can. If you're on the Alzheimer's and dementia journey, I highly recommend spending some time on our website, and I also have our helpline cards, and they'll send all kinds of information, and our helpline's 24/7. So there are a lot of nonprofits that are also like us that are available 24/7 through helplines. Then the other thing is, are you involved in civic organizations or neighborhood? Is there the HOA? How do you connect with your neighbors and people in your community? Doesn't mean the HOA is going to do anything, but if you're on the HOA board, you're probably meeting with other residents in your community. So there's just a lot of people, if you're into sports and teams, book clubs, where we go to pray, right? Churches can be a great source of support, both for our fellow parishioners, but also there's just lots of things that happen, keeping things socially active and things like. So your homework, because I am a social worker and I always give homework, is that it's always emotional homework. It's the heavy lifting stuff. So looking at your 3 things that you said, I'm okay with getting help with, and then using your sphere of support to find the help. So the last thing I'm going to do before I have Alan come up and talk about, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have Alan come up, and then I'm going to close with a relaxation exercise that hopefully you won't fall asleep in, but you might drift off a little bit, and that's okay. So let me introduce you to Alan. Alan is one of our incredible volunteers. He's been a wonderful support group facilitator. He's helped support our Walk to End Alzheimer's, which helps us fundraise to provide all of our services like this talk for free. He's also been on a personal caregiving journey, so he's going to share a little bit about his story and experience.
My mom, free beard. She would have hated my beard. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to spend a few minutes speaking about attending the Prescott Sport Group beginning in December 2018, and then facilitating the sport group from April 2022 to May 2025. My personal experience with the disease was with my mom. While living at home with my dad in Florida, her disease progressed from mild to moderate and then severe phases. When my dad passed in May 2017, my oldest brother moved her into an assisted living facility near him. I found the support group meetings to be of tremendous value, as I was able to discuss how Mom and I were doing. It was so helpful to tell stories, express feelings, and get tips and ideas and insights from people that truly understand what you're going through. For example, I learned that people remember their favorite songs and even all the lyrics long after memories are lost to the disease. So when visiting, I would play Frank Sinatra songs on my Kindle, and that brought us both so much happiness. When Mom passed in January 2020, I no longer had a personal need to attend meetings, but I knew that making people aware of Alzheimer's Association programs, services, and resources, and describing my experiences could be of help to others. So I became a volunteer support group facilitator. A support group offers empathy and camaraderie, and also plenty of laughing that is so important for caregivers. Whether your loved one is your spouse or your parent, lives at home or in an assisted living facility or in memory care, and if you are a primary or family caregiver, as I was, all are welcome to attend a meeting to see if it may help you. There are in-person support groups throughout Northern Arizona, including a meeting held at the Cottonwood Public Library. There's also an online meeting that works best for caregivers that have a loved one they can't leave it alone at home. If you may be interested, there's a complete listing on the table. My hope is that with all the studies being conducted, soon the Alzheimer's Association vision will be met, a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. I'm so glad he joined me today because I think some people are very hesitant to attend support groups because it feels like you're going to just share all your personal information and everyone's just going to be crying and it's just going to be this really overwhelming, sad experience. And there's sharing and there's crying, for sure. But there's laughter, as Alan said too, and sharing of critical local resources. People that are on the journey. No one understands the journey like people who are on the journey. It just is. You know, my grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's disease 8 years ago now. So while I work for the Alzheimer's Association, my connections to who are the best doctors in the community or therapists that help people, or, I mean, I know where the best support groups are, but, you know, knowing all of those ins and outs of navigating it, we navigated it in Pennsylvania, I didn't navigate it in Arizona. So what I knew and what was available there isn't the same as what's available here. And so that's where, when you're in a support group with other people who live in the greater kind of area, if you're doing virtual, we do just promote the caregiver support groups in Northern Arizona to people in Northern Arizona, so there is that connection. But it makes a big difference. People just really get it when they're in it, and then you also get to share your hard-earned wisdom with other people, and that can feel tremendously great. So the last thing that we're going to do is a progressive muscle relaxation exercise. And I am going to invite you to put your handouts down. If at any time this feels uncomfortable, you can just sit quietly. You don't have to do this. There's no forced relaxation technique process here, okay? It's about what works for you. Some of you may really like this, some may not. I really like this as a closing. So sometimes I do it before I go to bed. Sometimes I do this once I'm in bed. And it's kind of like, body, we are relaxing. The point of this exercise is to help you feel the difference between when your body is tense and when you're able to release the tension and really feel that. So we are going to be doing some tightening, so if there's some parts of your body that are more uncomfortable than others to do that, just skip it. This is just for you to relax. So we're going to sit the way we did for our box breathing exercise. This is just about gentle breath, so we're not doing any deep breathing or anything like that. This is really about focusing in on the body. So the first exercise I did was breath. The second one is for the mind, and this one is for the body. So the first thing you're going to do is just, if you'd like, close your eyes. If not, just kind of have your eyes look kind of right in front of you so that they're not kind of looking around. And you're just going to sit quietly for a few seconds and just focus on smooth and even breathing. So just your natural pace of breath. Now I'm going to have you make fists with both of your hands and feel the tension building in your lower arms, hands, and fingers. Focus on that tension and silently describe the uncomfortable pulling sensations to yourself. That's what happens when you're stressed. So hold the tension. Now release the tension and let your hand and arms relax. Focus on the warm, heavy, relaxed feelings in your hands and notice the contrast with the tension. Just focus for a while on your relaxed hands and continue to breathe slowly and smoothly. Now I'm going to have you bend your arms and press both of your elbows firmly into your sides. While you're pressing your elbows inward, also flex your arm muscles like your biceps. Notice the tension building up through your arms, shoulders, and back. Hold that tension. Now release your arms and let them fall to your sides. Focus on the warm, heavy, and relaxed feelings in your arms and continue to breathe slowly and smoothly. Now moving to your lower legs, you're going to flex your feet by trying to point your toes towards your nose. Notice the tension spreading through your feet, ankles, and calves. Hold the tension. Release the tension in your lower legs and focus on your sense of comfort as your lower legs become more relaxed. Now you're going to build tension in your upper legs by pressing both of your knees together. If it's comfortable, you can also try lifting your legs off of the chair, but as long as you're pressing them together, you'll get that. And then focus on the tension in your thighs and the pulling sensations in your hips. Describe those uncomfortable feelings to yourself. Let your legs relax slowly and heavily onto the chair. Focus on letting go of all of the tension in your legs, arms, and shoulders. Pull your stomach in towards your spine. Notice the tension in your stomach. Now let your stomach relax and focus on the relaxation you can produce in your stomach, in your legs, and in your arms and shoulders. Now, take in a very deep breath and hold it. Notice the tension in your expanded chest. Now slowly let the air out and feel the tension gradually disappear. Notice that you can voluntarily relax your body, and you can breathe slowly and deeply. And with each breath that you take, you can allow yourself to relax even more. Just focus on relaxing and letting go of all your tension. Imagine that your shoulders are in strings and are being pulled up toward your ears. Feel the tension building in your shoulders, your upper back, and neck. Hold that tension. Allow your shoulders to droop down. Let them droop as far as they can go. Notice the difference between the feelings of tension and relaxation. Pull your chin down and try and touch your chest with it. Notice the pulling and tension in the back of your neck. Let go of the tension in your neck. Focus on letting your neck muscles relax. Let your arms and legs relax. Now you're going to build the tension in your forehead by forcing yourself to frown. Try to pull your eyebrows toward each other. Focus on the tension in your forehead. Now release. Smooth out all of these new wrinkles and let your forehead relax. At this point, allow your whole body to feel relaxed and heavy. Breathe deeply and voluntarily relax your arms, legs, stomach, shoulders, and facial muscles. Breathe in and out deeply 5 times and say the word relax to yourself, and voluntarily let all of the tension disappear. gonna welcome you back. No one fell asleep. I just want to thank you all again so much for coming and spending time with me today. I hope you found this helpful. I hope there's some things you'll take with you. Please don't forget to do your homework. So 3 things that you're willing to accept help with and where you might be able to accept it. And have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Kinsey. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
I do.
Joyce does.
I do. I know this is a question that comes up in dealing with people with the Alzheimer's and people who are caring for them is what, how much help can people expect from Medicare? In other words, how much does Medicare spend?
Not much.
Yeah.
So one of the things that is going to happen is if you need support with paying for in-home or long-term care, you'll need to apply for a special long-term care insurance. Medicare does not cover assisted living, nursing homes, in-home care attendance, unless it's tied to like physical therapy or a nurse coming in that's doing medically specific care. So really that's where you're either going to look for private long-term care insurance if you're not already paying into that, or you'll need to apply for ALTEX, which is the Arizona Long-Term Care Services. We'll go with services. So unfortunately Medicare does not cover things like the kind of special support. Now I will say that we're working with NAU to build out a respite program. So that is something that you may have access to. So it's more companionship. So someone can come into the home and spend time with your loved one so you can take a nap, do some chores around the house, go grocery shopping, pick up the groceries. So it gives you a little bit of time and reprieve. But again, it's not medical care, it's not medication management, it's just companionship. Any other questions?
A contact of our first talk was at some of the retirement facilities, and some of them have a continuing care program that once you get in as independent, you can move into assisted and all that. If it's truly as Claudia said, a form, you move from each level without additional fees except meals and things like that. So that can be a consideration that people, that's like your insurance, but it's a form of that insurance. So
Thank you for that. Yes?
What kind of help can be received when you know you need to apply for Medicaid?
What kind of help can be received when you know you need to apply for Medicaid? So usually there are organizations, nonprofits that will help people apply for Medicaid because it can be a little bit tricky. The other thing is if you're applying for the Arizona Long-Term Care Insurance, that unfortunately you don't typically get a ton of help on the front end, but there are legal aid that will help you if you get rejected. And I will say if you do apply for ALTEX, assume you'll get rejected the first time and have to appeal. Unfortunately, we've been seeing Jackson White is one of the attorney groups that we sometimes work with, and they do amazing presentations on what's going on with ALTEX, and they've noted that there's been an increase in rejections lately. So it's the same with Social Security, disability insurance. It's just I don't know what it is. It's like the government just likes to say no and then force you to say no. It's a yes. It's a yes.
So if someone is taking care of a spouse, say, or a parent with Alzheimer's, and they have to go into a facility, maybe they've fallen or something like that, how many days do they get from Medicare?
So that I can't answer. I am 100% not a Medicare expert. I very long time ago volunteered at the Medicare Rights Center, and it was over a week of training to try and understand Medicare. For those of you that are on Medicare, you know how hard it is and challenging it is to even figure out what you're supposed to be doing and what you're supposed to sign up for. Medicare is like, feels like it's intentionally meant to be extra challenging. So I would say if you have questions like that, either calling your specific plan to ask, because that's skilled nursing, so it's a SNF, skilled nursing facility, and they'll be able to tell you specifically what your coverage is, because it also depends on like what parts you have, and it's really complicated. Or you can always call the Medicare Rights Center. They're a national nonprofit.
One more resource that people may not be available, where Yavapai County has a Tai Chi group that does programs throughout Cottonwood and Ferdy and Sedona and the like, and some of them are seated, so, but that's very much some of the stuff that you talked about. Some of the people have brought their Alzheimer's relatives along with them. It's just an option that gives you a little time to get out and get some of the relaxation stuff.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that funding for Yavapai County comes through the tobacco dollars, and it is specifically funded in a way to support people with Alzheimer's and dementia. So there's Tai Chi classes throughout Yavapai County.
Yeah. It doesn't cost the people to participate.
Right. Yeah, it's fully free.
Right.
Any other questions?
Okay, again, thank you, Kinsey, for coming and being with us. I cannot sing the praises more loudly than the Alzheimer's Association. I know when my mother was going through her dementia, we lived in the St. Louis area, but we relied heavily on the Alzheimer's Association for support and resources, and so don't be afraid to reach out. I know they're not here locally, but as she said, there's a help number that you can call and ask questions at any time. So please do that. And if you haven't picked up, Kinsey did bring some information about the Alzheimer's Association. It's over at this table. She has a sign-in sheet, which most people I think have signed in, but if you didn't and could, that helps her. So it's just basically your name and your zip code that she's needing. So if you haven't did not do that on your way in, please do that on your way out. But thank you for coming today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And what's next week, Joyce? I forget.
Next week, holy cow. Wait, there's more.
There are three more that will be coming. There will be one next week, which is
Getting ready for transitions. This is going to be interesting. I'm excited. This is going to be interesting. It's Gina Hall from Senior Transitions Team. I'm not familiar with her, so we can all get familiar together, and a panel of experts. So come, because these are things that I hope I see a lot of faces, repeat faces, and I hope you're enjoying this and learning from it. It's maybe not a fun time like going to the playground, but it's knowledge that we are reading from you.
yeah, that we all know. And then there will be, during Holy Week or the week between Palm Sunday and Easter, we will not have a session, but then there'll be 2 follow-up sessions the 2 weeks after.
the next one, next week, and the following one is April 8th, and it's good news on insurance.
I think that's the one for you, Joyce.
Oh, yeah, really?
Good news.
Really, oh, okay, I'm waiting for that one. And that's on April 8th, and on April 15th, reviewing our estate plans and planned giving.
Oh.
If there's anything left.
Okay, thank you again, thank you again.
Ready? Yep. I'm ready. Thanks.